Hey everyone, this is Cary and Matt Dernlan on the podcast The Way, presented by Rudis. We had a question this week talking about how we feel about officials and officiating and things of that nature. How you doing, Matt? How was your week?
Good. This is a loaded question, right? I mean, this could go in a lot of different areas when you're talking about officials. Yeah. Let's just see where this goes for sure.
Well, I'll tell you, here's how I feel about it. People always ask me, like, they'll see some bad calls, and today with social media, right? They'll put it out and they'll say, look at this, and how in the world, is this a 2-point takedown, and how's that? Look, I wrestled, you wrestled, I wrestled at a high level, you wrestled at a high level, and I hate officiating. Like, I have done some wrestle offs every now and then, and until you're actually doing it, especially if it's guys in the room and it's a tight situation, your heart starts to pound a little bit. But here's what I got. And I used to be like everybody else years ago. I used to be like that guy, like, how could you blow that and this and that? And it's kind of like the old Teddy Roosevelt saying, don't judge the man in the arena, right? And and here's when I sat back and started really looking at it, and I've had some conversations with some of these guys. And here's what I said, perspective. And these big dual meets, right? How many people I wrestled? Well, let's go back to the NCAA. NCAA finals was, 14, 15,000 people. And I wrestled in Iran. It was 20, 21,000 people in the arena. And I was trained my entire life for that situation. Like, I wanted to be in that situation. I wanted to wrestle in front of 20-some thousand people. I wanted that excitement. It's like an adrenaline junkie. It's all those things that you trained as an athlete. I was trained to do that, and you were trained to do that. And so, like, here's how I'll start this segment, Matt. Name me how many officials are trained who don't have a job, let me back up. Let me add to this. Full time. Like, I trained full time. I worked out 3 times a day when I was competing, making world teams and trying to make the Olympic team and win medals. I trained 3 times a day for that exact situation. And now you're asking to find officials who work a job. They get paid. Some of these guys, I really didn't know this, and I was ignorant to the fact. Some of these guys only make, like, I don't know, $500 or $600 a dual meet. And that doesn't even include their hotel. Like, that's part of the deal, right? So you tell me how many people can go into an arena that has a dual meet. Let's say it's Penn State and Iowa. How many people do they pull? 15,000?
Yeah, easy.
One dual meet, right? 15,000 people. Who's trained to do that? Who's reffing 3 times a day, practicing their swiping and practice? Like, this is what I think people forget, and this is why I back off on officials. Who? It's not a full-time job. It's a part-time situation in a highly volatile arena, depending on whether you make the right call or the wrong call. And this guy, could have possibly paid for his own airfare and hotel, and he maybe made $300. You know what I mean? Who is trained to handle that? Like, yeah, because and when I say trained, this is I'm going to use an example. So the NBA has full-time salaried, officials, right? For NFL has full-time salaried. These men are paid a full-time salary just to be the best at what they do. And see, in wrestling, it's not a full-time salary. It's a part-time gig because the guy wrestled. He wanted to be a ref. And really, in the end, honestly, it's volunteer work. You're not making any money from being an NCAA official. You have to have a job that allows you the flexibility to take the time off. You do it because you like it. And let's say maybe max that the guy makes $4,000 to $5,000 max, possibly, at the end of the year, if he made it to the NCAA tournament. What does that get you? And it's very volatile. And so when somebody screws up, then now people are seeing more and more officials just walk away because it's not worth the headache. And especially now, it's not worth the insults that you're going to face on social media when you screw up. So
no, anyway, it used to be, right. If you were an official, as soon as you walked out of the arena, the match is over. Yeah, you may get a follow-up phone call or an email or something like this, or a text from a coach. But primarily, when you used to, when you walked out of the arena, you were done. Now it's for the whole world. I mean, your call is subject to debate for the entire country. Anybody that's tuning in, and you're getting crucified, in a lot of situations on subjective interpretive calls that aren't really black and white. And that's kind of my frustration with some of the rules that are being passed along and implemented into the sport, is that, man, I would tell some of the leaders in the sport, I'm like, you're putting this official in even a more of a no-win situation. They're already in a no-win situation to begin with. When they walk into the arena, like, at least if you're a wrestler on either side, even in a weight competition, there's going to be a pocket of people that are really supporting you. You've got your team, you've got your coaches, you got your mom and dad in the stand, and then if you're on the other side of the dual meet, and you're on the home team, well, you got the whole crowd supporting you, and you got your team, and you got your coaches. Well, for the official, everybody's against you, home and away, right? So you're literally, every situation you're going into is a hostile, contentious situation by and large. And it really is a no-win situation. And like you said, like for us as athletes and coaches, we do this year round. These guys, for the most part, it's a seasonal job. They have 3 months, probably a couple officials clinics. They've probably got to go and get recertified every year. They've probably got to get continuing education, every single year. But by and large,
it's not enough.
It's not enough,
it's not
man.
Enough.
It ain't worth it, right? And especially some of the garbage that gets thrown their way. I mean, it's literally a thankless job. And I've had those conversations with officials. I'm like, why do you do this? And I would say, I would look back at myself. I'm like, look, I would admit, like, look, I'm an idiot to you sometimes, and I try not to be. But I'm still an idiot. It's like,
well, here's why I don't like it. Here's why I don't like it. This is where I think something as coach, I want to see better officials, and I'm not really knocking the officials out, but I would like to see a guy be able to, say I make a decent amount of money off this, where, now okay, if I screw up, it's on me. Like, literally, I should have limited mistakes now, right? Because look, if my team's not performing, I get fired. That's just the way it is. Doesn't matter how technical of a coach I am. If I can't find a way to get this team to the top, in the end, you get fired, and rightfully so. That's the profession we're in, and it's not different than any other profession. I mean, if you're hired to do sales and you can't bring in the business, well, then we need to get somebody else. And with these officials, and these aren't all my own thoughts. This was after having some discussions with some of the guys who I've seen in the sport for a long time, who are officials. And when they presented it to me that way, because we were just talking about officiation and we were talking about, the social media and stuff, he said, and that's what he said to me, what I said to you, name me a guy that is capable of handling a duel of 15,000. Now, here's the worst part about it. Think about a duel meet of 15,000, whether it's Penn State and Iowa, and sometimes they don't even have an outside official. It's one guy. So now you have one guy that has to make the hands to the face call. And, you really have to be trained to do that. And I go back to when I was training. I was trained 3 times a day to handle an arena of 20,000. This is what I trained for. I'm used to this. Your psyche gets built up because you have all the hours of time to reflect on that. You learn to block out the crowd because you're there to do a job. But see, the official's really not there to do a job. He's doing it because he likes doing it, and it's fun because he's not making any money off of it. But then when he goes home and he's beat up on social media or cussed out and told he's the worst official in the world, then why would you want to do it anymore? That's the thing. And that's why I say there needs to be some, and I don't know how to do it, but I do know that for me, it would be worth the sacrifice. Like I would, and maybe some of my coaches, in my ranks are going to disagree with me, but I find it so important that I don't want my guy to get screwed over on a bad call because this guy doesn't have enough training. And then I can't really yell at that guy because it's a part-time job. It's not even a part-time job. Truth is, my daughter makes more in the summer work in the fast food restaurant. They're like, well, it's not fast food. It's a restaurant up the road where they also have a quick window that people come through for ice cream. She makes more in tips than these guys will make in a duel. You know, and I'm sitting there saying, so a 16-year-old makes more than a guy out there officiating an event with 15,000 people, and people want to beat him up. And this is where I think coaches, we need to step up and we need to kind of fix the situation and make it more worthwhile so we can have better officials stick around. So anyway, that's my feeling. So the person who asked the question, you know, that's my feeling on officiating. Hopefully I kind of switched your mind a little bit. Go on, Matt.
And really, I mean, I know most conferences, they have their conference officials, and then they have their designated rep that oversees and evaluates these guys. And I think every conference, the coaches kind of determine what the officials are getting paid, right?
Yes.
Like you pass along and we nickel and dime these guys. I'm like, and it's almost like they're pissed off at these guys before the match even starts. Like, so I don't want to pay this guy. Like, no, pay him, show him his worth. It's just like everything else in life, right? If you pay a guy his worth, they're going to believe that they're valued and they're appreciated. But when we're nickeling and diming these guys.
Well, there's a saying in the world too, Matt. You get what you pay for. You know, like you get what you pay for. So you got a guy who's, you know, my 16-year-old can make more money in a night than the guy can make in a duel. And listen, there aren't 15,000 customers yelling at her. You know, I mean, so it's different. Yeah, but you're right. The conference does set the scale for their officials.
And to your point, most conferences say, this is our flat fee. And by flat fee, like you said, that your mileage comes out of there, your room and board, your meals come out of there. And so essentially these guys are left to nothing. And what I tried to do is as best as I possibly could in certain situations when we brought officials in, and I wasn't looking to get advantage. Yeah, I was. That's a lie. I was trying to get some benefit, but I would tell these officials, like, look, I've got your hotel. Don't worry about that. I know, you know, you've got to cover the cost on your own. You've driven a couple hours to come over here as well. It's like, look, I'll take this out of my program's budget. I'll cover your hotel room. I appreciate what you're doing. I understand you have a full-time job. When you come here to Binghamton, I'm going to take care of your hotel rooms just to show you I appreciate the effort that you're doing. Did I hope it would benefit in a crucial call here and there? Yeah. But it was in some way, shape, or form to show these guys, like, look, I respect what you do. I appreciate what you do. And what you're getting is not quite enough. And on the flip side of that, when it came to the actual officiating itself, not that I tried to establish an upfront contract with them, but I'm like, hey, can we have a discussion before the match? I just want to know how you're going to call things. But because for me as a coach, the one thing that I always looked for is like, I just wanted consistency out of the official. Like, I wanted to know, like, hey, if you're going to call a slow stall call, I'm fine with that as long as you call slow stall calls for 10 straight matches. Or if you're going to call quick pin every single time, or a quick stall call. Like, as long as I know how you're going to call a match, I can't get ticked off if you're doing exactly what you told me you were going to do. And I think that's some of the fault of coaches sometimes, that they don't have this conversation and get a good understanding. Like, hey, how are you going to call this situation? How are you going to call the hands to the face? How are you going to call, stalling? Back points. Are you a quick back point guy, or are you going to wait for a full 1 count, or as soon as the guy goes past 90, you go 1,001? Like, okay, as long as I know what you're doing and you do it consistently, I'm not going to get upset about it. But I don't think a lot of times coaches, they don't do their job. They just start reacting as soon as the match happens. And like, no, you should have started handling your business with the official before the match even happened. And then I think it's important after the match too, to break it down. Like, and I would tend, what I would do with coaches, because typically I'm emotional one way or the other after the match, in a win or a defeat. And I would tell the official, I'm like, hey, I know right now is probably not the best time for me to talk to you, but how about I call you on Tuesday after I can get a level head, I can really break down the match and look at it. I give you a call and we can actually go through and actually have a productive conversation. What I thought was good, what I questioned, what I thought was bad, and then you can have the same opportunity with me. Is like, hey, like this is when I thought you were right by questioning me. This when I thought you were way off base, and this is where I thought it was reasonable to have a discussion in the match about how I'm calling things.
Right. Well, the whole hands to the face rule this comes back to rules. And what you just said, that's exactly how I've approached officials. But this is what I have a problem with now. And I hate this rule, and I find it dumb. I hate it. But, we make rules to police like the 5% of the people who break them. Hands to the face. Few guys, pushed on your face. Call stalling. Call him for stalling. Or call it unnecessary roughness if a guy's in your face. But now we got this rule that can cost some people some matches. And we saw it. We saw some big duel meets where guys, got called for 1 point at the end in overtime. And that rule was really made for just a few people, right? Instead of looking at the overall, everything's we're fine. Now we have this rule. You cannot question an official. And I find that, and I think there should be a limit. Obviously, a coach shouldn't be slowing down and a dual meet and things of that nature. But the way you've done it, you've said it, that's exactly what I've done. I've taken video and sent it to them and said, do you still feel this way about it? And I've had guys saying, well, after watching this video and just seeing the one angle that you give me, I see what you're saying. But that's right. And that's all I wanted. An acknowledgement is like, I guarantee if I officiated a match, I have 2 NCAA titles and world team medals, and I guarantee people would think I'd be the greatest official in the world. And I already know I'd be the worst official in the world to start out. It doesn't matter what age level it would be. I would have to train up just like everybody else. And, but I hate that I can't communicate sometimes without being dinged. And that's how you can't, if you don't have that relationship and making each other better, right? Like, hey, I'd be fine with an official say, hey, Cary, look, I'm just going to tell you right now, you're an idiot when I have to ref you. And I'll be honest, emotionally, sometimes I don't even realize it, but I got some animosity and the calls may not go your way. You know what I mean? And I think that's a natural human reaction. You try to stay neutral, but I don't care what you say. People get upset sometimes. And I feel the same way about officials sometimes that, I think you got to be open to say, you don't get it all right. And, you got to be able to admit that you make mistakes. I hate the ones who won't even admit, won't even come back. I'll tell you the ones is when you won't even apologize that, yeah, I made a bad call. If I ever got an apology from a guy, I'd be like, you made a bad call. I get it. I'm not happy about it. It may have cost my guy, but at least I know you're human and you're trying to get better, just like any athlete is trying to get better each and every time he steps out there and on the mat or in the practice room. But
we could go on and on about this.
Yeah.
But yeah, to your point, a lot of these rules that they like you said, they make the rules to eliminate the 5% of the offenders of this, like hands to the face. And I think it's the same way with rules not allowing coaches to have a discussion with officials. It's for the 5% of those complete idiots that are going to abuse the rule. The majority of coaches, I think when they have a disagreement on the call, even if they're emotional and it's in the heat of battle, when they get to the head table, it's like, hey, can we just have a discussion? I just want to know why you made that call. Just clarify to me why you made that call. Like half the time when I went to the table, it wasn't to argue. I just wanted clarification, not just in that match, but to establish that thought in the official's mind moving forward. Like, hey, tell me why you made that call. And if you can rationally tell me why you made that call, I'd say, okay, now I know what to expect moving forward. Okay.
Right.
Now there are some times like, hey, you made the wrong call and you need to know you made that wrong call in that moment. It needs to be brought to your attention. And the last thing I need is the assistant official reinforcing that bad call. that was a level of frustration as well. It's like, why have the official, the assistant referee is there to make sure every call goes right, not to reinforce whatever call the head official made. And that was just a general frustration. But by and large, I think there should be more open dialogue, because I think that's where things kind of get volatile in the corners. Like, hey, I know I can't go to the table because I'm going to get dinged. So I'm going to be even more belligerent because this is the only voice I have. I got to stay. And not only do I have to stay in my corner, you've made it such like you've boxed me in to a 1.5 foot triangle in the coach's corner that I can't even walk out of. So
I know. Well, yeah, those were made. That was definitely made for a few guys. But all right, Matt. Well, listen, man. I think it was another good discussion, and who knows? If you got questions, fire them at us. We'll be happy to discuss them. If not, we'll come up on with them on our own. But all right, man. Well, have a good week. Okay.
All right, Cary. Appreciate it. And good luck this week.
All right, man.